My name's Tim Carter, W3ATB. Of course, I live in southwest Meredith. And I want to talk to you tonight a little bit about the past 2 years of my life, where I've tried to, it's basically been a life-changing experience for me. And I was kind of sucked into the black hole of CW. And this talk is not about how to do Morse code. We could talk, there's people who've got courses out there. There are people who are much better suited to teach you how to do it than me, because I'm still an apprentice. But what I wanted to share with you was how it's impacted my life, and how if you don't know CW or you don't do Morse code, you might consider doing it. So let me fill you in a little bit with a backstory, because I think it's really important. So my whole journey with CW actually started probably 55 years ago. I distinctly remember being in a car one day. Somebody was driving us somewhere. I was probably 8 years old. And I was with a friend of mine who was 2 years older than me. His name was Roger Boncutter. And Roger, when you grew up, if you remember on your street having some other boy that was maybe 2 years older, he was like your protector, and you looked up to him, and whatever he said, it was gold. And that was Roger in my life, and Roger and I are still good friends. So Roger said, "Hey, let's get our ham radio license." And I said, "What's ham radio?" And he explained it to me, and he's maybe 10 years old, and he said, "But we have to learn Morse code." And I went, "Morse code? What's that?" And he showed me, and and it was the old-fashioned way, on the paper, da-da, da-da-da-da, and so, dot dash. And so my head was just shaking. It's like, oh, I don't know about this, man. I don't know. I don't think I can do that. So I kind of backed away from it. I didn't do it. And then, of course, I was a Boy Scout. And in Boy Scouts, you had to know some basic Morse code, and I picked it up there. But I was intrigued by it. And I think that's important. It's like that seed was planted all those years back. And it finally sprouted. The seed finally sprouted 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago to the day. It was February 18th of 2013 at Boy Scout 68, Troop 68's meeting down in Laconia, in their little building right behind St. Joseph Church. And I forget who invited me there, but Jim Clute was there, Hans Busch was there, and was it you? Yeah, you were there. And I didn't know what we were going to talk about, and I surely had no idea that Jim Clute and that Hans were going to do a demonstration. Hans had brought one of his little radios in a box, and if you've never seen Hans Busch's radios, they're absolutely unbelievable. We're actually finishing mine this weekend, so I'm really excited about it. But it's a small little MFJ Cub in a box. It's got the little touch keyer acorn nuts on the outside. It's completely self-contained. You just flip it open, hook your antenna to it, turn it on, and you're ready to go. And I saw that, and my eyes got like this big. I was like, wow, that is cool. And then Jim and Hans proceeded to do Morse code between one another, because they separated the boys into two groups. And each of the groups created a secret message, and then Jim and Hans transmitted back and forth and showed the boys that the other team or the other person could decipher the message. And it was like an explosion happened to me. I was like, I couldn't even sleep that night. It was so cool. I thought, you know what? I'm going to learn Morse code. I'm going to do this. And so I just jumped in feet first. And so that's what started it. Now, on a personal level, the reason I did it, there's like 3 or 4 different reasons. The first was the deep-rooted interest I had in it all those years. And as crazy as this sounds, I had done a little bit of research, and I decided that I wanted to do it to try to ward off Alzheimer's. Because what I'm reading is that if you really keep your brain going, it helps. Now, is it true or not? I don't know. But you know what? I'm not going to take any chances, and there is Alzheimer's in my family. So it's like, I thought, you know what? At least I'm going to go down with a paddle in my hand, So, and those of you who know me in the club, I've only really been part of the club for, I don't know, it's going on 4 years this summer. Lee's the first guy I met. I don't like to start confrontations, but if one gets started and I get invited into it, it's like Texas Hold'em, I'm all in. So I like challenges. So, I don't mean to say I'm aggressive, but I used to be a really serious type A personality in my younger days when I was a builder. And I still probably am pretty much type A. So I saw this as a challenge and I thought, okay, like if you tell me I can't do Morse code, then I say to you, you know what? I'm going to do it 35, 40 words a minute. You'll see, and so that's how serious I take it. And then I read a few articles that Dick Christopher was in, that Jim Cluett had written about outdoor radio. And I love to hike. And it was just like, boom, like, wow, you can marry these two parts of the hobby together, do Morse code, because when you do this outdoor radio, you need to travel lightly, and CW is a very efficient mode. It just all works out. So those are the reasons why I decided to do it. So, and it really helped. And I can tell you this, if you haven't already figured this out, if you want to have success in life, no matter what you do, I don't care what it is, you have to also have the motivation behind you to make it happen. Because I'll give you an example. I've been an entrepreneur for 40-something years, so I've been self-employed. And I hear people all the time who have a 40-hour-a-week job working for somebody else say, well, I think I'm going to try this little side business, but if it doesn't work out, I can just stick with my 40-hour-a-week job. Well, that's not enough motivation to make your little part-time thing success. Typically, you have to take failure off the table, and the way you take failure off the table is you just jump in feet first. And so that's what I've done with CW. So now, what are the barriers? If you're an adult like all of us in this room, there's a huge barrier, and it's fear. And I had that fear, and I experienced the fear early on, and as I was jumping into it. And the reason why is because there must be 500 or 1,000 questions. I've actually thought about writing this book, and I'll just give you a few of them. Like, I didn't even know what to do. There's a certain protocol, there's a certain thing that you do when you do a QSO with somebody. I had no idea what that was. But those of you who have done it for 5 or 10 years, you just slough it off. It's like, oh, well, you mean you didn't know you got to send your call sign and then from and then yours? No, I didn't know that. Ego. Ego's big. Okay? The trouble with us as adults, if you haven't already figured this out, is that we tend to take failure much, much harder than kids do. All right? So if you don't want to fail at something and be embarrassed in front of your peers, well, then just don't do it. So if you don't take the chance, then you're not going to fail. Then no one's going to make fun of you. So that's a barrier. Well, you got to get over that. Somebody who's got a personality like mine, I don't care. I don't care what most people think about me. Because if you worry about that all day long, you're never going to get anywhere. Now, and then work. For me, I'm still a working stiff. I work about 60 hours a week. So work has a tendency to get in the way, of me wanting to play and practice and get better. And then another one is too many irons in the fire. So you just have to understand, if you've got a lot of stuff going on, each day you've only got so many minutes that you can put into the hobby or put into this new skill you're trying to develop. So let's talk a little bit about the benefits, because the benefits, I think, are the most important part. Because if you can buy into the benefits, then you may want to take the jump and try to do this. So for me, there's just enormous pleasure in it. And I'll give you an example. I'll tell you a story. And I really wish he was here, but he's not. So I started doing this outdoor radio, and I really wanted to do it 2 years ago, but I never got invited to go on one of the outings with Jim, Cluett, and Hans and Dick. And Jim was, looking back, at first I was hurt by it, but looking back, now I understand why I never got invited. Because I didn't know how to do anything yet. And I would just be a big millstone around their neck going on one of these outings. Okay, so that's cool. I can deal with that. So that was more motivation for me to learn how to do it. So we go out last year. It was probably in April. One of his favorite places to operate is Old Hill Village, if you know where that is, along the Pemigewasset River. Where the flood control is, and they tore down all the buildings. So we go down there one day. It's a nice warm day. And we walk down this pathway, and he says, I'm going to operate here. And he points kind of down the pathway. He says, you're going to go down there and operate. And it was probably about 150 feet away. So I start walking. He throws his antenna up the tree. I throw mine. And, I'm just like struggling. I'm sending out CQ. Nothing's happening. In the meantime, I hear, I don't know what it's called. So see, I'm not that good at radio. But I could hear him, I'm going to call it a sympathetic tone, come across through my earphones, meaning I could hear him do QSOs with people. And he's just banging them out. Like, I'm going, geez, Pete. So I'm still trying. And he finally gets his antenna down, and he wanders down to me. And he goes, how are you doing? I go, I'm not. I said, I haven't done anything so far. I haven't gotten anybody. And he goes, well, send some stuff out. And so I do it, and he just interrupts me, halfway through the CQ. He goes, stop. He says, no wonder. He says, you're sending in reverse. And I just crack up laughing. And what he meant by that is you're going so damn slow, no one's going to do a QSO with you. So I was probably sending it 5 words a minute, because, it was horrible. So, but literally I just cracked up laughing and was rolling on the ground. You really kind of had to be there, but it was just hilarious when he said you're sending in reverse. Okay, so another thing for me, another benefit is just personal gratification. Okay, so I don't know about you, but I like to discover and learn new things. That's just me. And so I know there are other people in this room that like to do the same thing, but they do it in different ways. So that was another benefit for me because I was just learning something new, and it happens to be a language. So really good. So it was the new shiny toy that was in my ham shack, but it's really kind of invisible. It's just, you don't see a brand new radio, just that it's a new skill. And another benefit, and you may have been here 2 years ago when I read this, but I'm going to do it again. You might make somebody else's dream come true. And you just never know who's out there, who's firing up their radio. And this happened to me a year ago, just about a year ago. It was a gentleman named Carl, and his call sign is VE3DZB. So those of you who really know that, so you know where Carl lives. So here's what he sent me. He wrote me a really nice letter. He said, Tim, you made my day today, my 90th birthday. He said, I had to prove to myself that even at this age, I could still operate a station and get a contact. And you, my friend, were the contact. So I made that guy's day. So his letter goes on. I don't need to read it all to you, but it's really a touching letter. So I had never expected to get a letter from a 90-year-old man. And when I did, it still breaks me up today to look at his letter. And I've got his letter framed in his QSL card that he sent me. And it's just really touching. So you might make somebody's life. It just was, if you read this guy's letter, and you're more than welcome to afterwards, you just won't believe it. Because, anyway, so another reason is too, I'll give you a quote from one of our club members, and it's really kind of cool. He says, Morse is one of the most intimate modes. Words, spaces, circumstances. What's not said. You can feel things in a fist. You'd be surprised. If you want emotion, listen to the tapes of Morse at sea during a rescue or a sinking. It's really unbelievable. Now, I've not been able to listen to any of those yet, but I can only imagine what it might be. And our club member, Jim Cluett, sent me that one day. And then, of course, there's the thrill of the QSO. Your first ones are your big ones. And so I'll never forget my first European DX QSO. It was just, I sent a CQ out one day, and boom, it comes back, and I actually could hear it. I was so lucky, because he sent it slow enough. But it was M0UAL. So Alistair Campbell over in the UK. And then right after him, I got a guy in Italy, and I was just ecstatic. And then one day, this is one in the United States of America, but it didn't mean anything to me when I heard the call sign, but it was K6KPH. And those of you who know that, that's the Maritime Historical Society out on the Pacific coast. So that was really cool. All right, so here's the trouble with Morse. here's what I had. Here was the problem that I had with it. And I'm going to call it the fire hose frustration. And it's like there's so much knowledge, and if you're not careful how you're receiving it, it's like trying to drink out of a fire hose, out of a 3-inch fire hose that's putting out about 500 gallons a minute. And you get really wet is what happens. And while Morse code is really simple, there's many in this room who are much, much better at it than I am. It's actually very complex. There's a lot going on. There's pro signs. We've got, and if there were any young people in the room, you all think you're really cool with their aren't it? They think they're so cool because they've got all these abbreviations with their little cell phones. How long's that been going on, Peter? 50, 60, 70 years? Longer? Yeah, since the beginning. 100 years. So, and Jim Cluett, who's my sensei, just last week he taught me a new one. He's constantly testing me and pushing me. And so he sent me one morning in our secret message session, GG. And I thought, GG, what the heck? I'm writing it all down. It's like, what does that mean? Well, it means going. It could mean a bunch of things, but it means to him going. So they're just shortening up words. Regional customs. So I'll never forget that when I heard somebody send Dear Tim, and I thought, I'm not a doctor. No, they're sending deer. There's certain European guys that's their custom. They send deer, and then of course it's just this tsunami of information. There's just so much to learn about, not so much how to do it, but just the way to do it. And I had never even heard. I'm embarrassed to say this. I didn't know anything about. I can't even think of the term now, but working split. Like, what the hell is that? I didn't know what that was. Well, guess what? If you want to do some of these pileups or work Navassa Island, you better know how to do splits. All right. So, if I've now interested you and you think, what, maybe I'll try this again, Tim, maybe I'll get back interested. Let me tell you what I think is the easiest and fastest pathway to 13 words a minute. Which isn't that the old general speed? All right. For me, and I just found out tonight, I thought it was available for everybody, I use the AD5RX. That must be some ham here in the nation trainer. He must be some guy that wrote this software. And to me, I've checked out a lot of the training software, and in my opinion, hands down, it's the best. And the reason why is, for me, it allows you to set the word per minute speed. And I actually think now, and I agree with a lot of this stuff online, that at the minimum, you have to hear it at 13 words a minute. Don't try to listen to it slower. But your effective speed, which you're allowed to set in the software, go ahead and set it for 5 words per minute. Because then it just gives you time. When you hear da-da-da, you go da-da-da, da-da-da. Oh, that's W. Well, in the old days, when I was first starting out, by that time, 10 characters had blown by me. And Peter knows, because I tried to do the slow speed net one night, and I ended up putting my tail between my legs and turning the radio off. I was so frustrated and embarrassed. But I could do it to now. No doubt about it, I could do it. But so the Coke trainer is pretty good too, but the problem with the Coke trainer is that it doesn't let you, at least I haven't been able to figure out how to set it for a slower character speed, in between characters. Yes, Adam?
I'll let you, I'll find out what software version I have. The version I have does. Okay, good. Well then, great. Then the Coke trainer is going to work great. So what you have to do, and I didn't do this, is you just have to knuckle down and you have to learn all the letters, all the numbers. These 3 pro signs, in my opinion, BT, BK, AR, SK, comma, period, question mark, and slash. You just have to learn that stuff, and you'll be able to do 98% of the QSOs you want out there. But you have to learn those and be able to do them at least at 7 words a minute so that you can get on the air and do your first QSO. I didn't do that. Jim was pushing me so hard, and God bless him, because he has such a love for this part of ham radio, that he was excited to see somebody who really had an interest and wanted to learn, but he was just unaware of what was happening inside my life that was holding me back, the barriers that I talked about before. So he got frustrated with me, So
But when you do that, then you can jump to the next level. I would recommend is go to the ARR website and listen to their code practice files, which is really nice. They have all different speeds. And then if you think if you've knocked a couple of those out, then I recommend you actually turn on the radio, as crazy as it sounds, and just go listen to some people. Don't try to do a QSO, just see if you can decipher what's going on. And what you're going to quickly find out, and this is the most frustrating part about Morse, in my opinion, is that I would say in my 2 years, I've only found 1% of the operators out there that do Morse code the way it's supposed to be done. And if you read up on it, there's a very distinct spacing between characters, and then words. And a lot of these guys just seem to be in a rush, and they just want to do it fast, and things just get jammed together. So that's you got to learn. You got to listen for that so that you're prepared in case that's your first QSO. And what's supposed to happen is that if you send CQ out, and whatever speed you're sending, the guy coming back is supposed to come back at that speed. Doesn't always happen, but don't make this mistake. Don't sit there and try to pounce on somebody that's running 20 words a minute and expect them to come down to your 8 words a minute, because it's just not necessarily going to happen. Here's what you'll hear, you might hear on the radio, da-da, da-dit, did-it, da, did-it, you might hear lid, So, so anyway, all right. Could you do me a favor? There's something in the left pocket of my jacket I need you to get out. It's a plastic bag. If you could just... Jim, am I still okay here?
Yes.
Can you see it? Okay, all right. This is the most important part. I'm almost done here, because we're going to take some questions. Your sensei. So if you know what a sensei is, that's a nice fancy word for an Elmer. I highly recommend that if you're going to go down this pathway to buddy up and get with somebody who really wants to see you learn Morse or learn CW, and who is willing to invest their time with you, because it makes all the difference in the world. It's got to be somebody who's passionate. It's got to be somebody that's got patience, because you might need it. And it's got to be somebody that's invested in you. And if you're lucky enough to find that person's going to be chiseled into your brain like the words that are going to be on your headstone, and which is a good thing. And because I will never forget, the amount of time that, Jim has put into me to learn this part of the hobby. Dick also has invested time with me. I'll never forget that. So it's really, really important. So now I'm just going to summarize it with these points. So why should you consider doing CW? And I know some of you are just thinking, Tim, I did it for my extra. I touched the key once back then. I haven't done it in 20 years, and I'm never going to do it. Well, maybe you should reconsider. I know it can help you mentally. I know it can help you physically, especially if you start to maybe, go on a little hike or two, like we do. I have to tell you, it's fun. And I'll give you an example of how fun it is, at least for me still. So today, I'm getting ready for this talk, and I'm up in the shack doing something. You'll see it in a minute. And I had to have the radio on, and I'm tuning around, and I'm trying to find a band that's not making a lot of noise. And it's kind of, at least on my radio, certain bands make a lot more background noise than others. Don't ask me why. Maybe it's my antenna, who knows. We can talk about that at another meeting. And all of a sudden, I'm on 17 meters, and I hear somebody calling CQ. And they weren't doing it particularly fast, and I thought, you know what, I can get that guy. I can do this. So that's that confidence, my confidence. I wasn't there 9 months ago. I would have just but I just thought, I'm going to get this guy. So he sends out his call sign. It was EA8JW. And so I don't know enough yet to know where that is, but I thought, I know it's not America, and I think it's somewhere across the ocean. It's like, I'm all over this guy. So I did this QSO with the guy very fast, and turns out the guy's in the Canary Islands. So I was like, my first Canary Islands guy. I thought, how cool is that? So, just this afternoon, I was like bouncing off the ceiling of my shack. A 62-year-old guy. Are you kidding me? Just because you heard some stuff come across? Yeah, well, it was fun. you might have that. It might energize you to capture that. And if you haven't heard the analogy before, Morse code is a lot like fishing. I mean, those of you in the room, there's my fisherman. So, the thrill of fishing is you go out, you don't know, you're going to throw your line, you don't know whether you're going to catch something or not, but you just might come back with that. Yeah, well, guess what? That's exactly what Morse code is in CW. You just don't know what you're going to come back with that day or that 10 minutes, so it's really enjoyable. It's fun. You'll gain a new skill, and you may find a new friend for life, and actually friends. So that's why you should do it. So I have to get my phone set up here to do the end. So the International Morse Preservation Society motto, they have a motto, and that's the fancy name. Those of you who do it, it's FISTS, F-I-S-T-S. They've got a motto, and their motto is accuracy transcends speed. And this is why you need to be able to hear and send Morse code, and here's why. Okay, so here's the thing. The last thing you want to send when you hear that, if you hear SOS and you hear that, the last thing you want to send to those people is you don't want to send them this. You don't want to send them a piece of kelp when they need help. So you better understand and know Morse code if that's simple. So thanks very much for letting me share my experience with you. And if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. All right. Any questions at all? Yes, Adam.
I can't help but come away from your presentation. One, really good job, but two, you make it sound difficult when, albeit I kind of dropped off the planet after learning half the alphabet, it really isn't difficult if you buckle down and do it. So I just want to, what's your take on the difficulty level?
So Adam's question, he thinks I make it sound difficult when he's experienced it's not. So what I think is difficult about it is the overarching ability to be proficient and do QSOs. Because I agree with you, meaning you and I, like when Jim Clute was first teaching me, he said, all I want you to do is to learn a new letter a day. And he said, by the end of a month, you will have mastered the alphabet and had some numbers down.